With all the Kareem Hunt trade rumors flying out there right now, I just want to show the guys some love. And I'm asking you guys to join me in doing that. That sounded weird. But type 27 down in the comment section below if you want to see Kareem Hunt suit up in brown and orange this season. Coming up on today's edition of the Cleveland Browns Report by Chat Sports, we've got a lot of ground to cover. So the Kareem Hunt trade buzz is out there. Two interesting trade ideas I saw. I'm going to kind of shoot down. Well, one of them I'm going to shoot down. But it will transition nicely into the latest Jimmy Garoppolo trade buzz because ESPN's Get Up made a decent pitch as to why the Browns should trade for Garoppolo. So we're going to look at that. Plus, two different Big J's coming out with their predictions for a Deshaun Watson suspension. They're looking at 10 games. We're going to unpack all that. But make sure you follow me on Twitter at Matthew Petey. If you want more Browns news, rumors, and getting in the know, hit me up over at twitter.com/Matthew Petey. The link's in the comments and the description of today's show. But let's start off with the Kareem Hunt trade rumors because I don't know about you guys. I could use a bit of a break from the Deshaun Watson stuff, so we'll just put that at the end of the show. But Hunt trade rumors kind of started over the weekend, right? Mary Kay reported that Hunt had requested a trade because he was not getting a contract negotiation talk very far, trying to get that extension. So he began a hold-in, right, where he showed up to practice, but he was going to sit out of team drills, which would result in him getting fined. And surprise, surprise, he returned back to team drills back on Sunday, essentially ending his hold-in or hold-out. Now, here was one of the two trade ideas I saw tossed around. Some people commented on our last video, what about Kareem Hunt for Daron Payne? Makes a little bit of sense on both ends. The Browns need help on their interior defensive line. Washington just needs help on offense because Carson Wentz, he's not going to do it all on his own. I don't think this trade actually happens for two big reasons. My first reason as to why a Kareem Hunt for Daron Payne trade does not get off the ground is Andrew Berry, we have learned he's not very interested in the interior defensive line in terms of putting a lot of assets or capital into it. Did not sign a big-name free agent. He didn't draft one until the 4th round. And why would he be interested in trading for a defensive tackle who is on the last year of his contract and he's looking for a contract extension with his current team? Usually when trades like this take place, what ends up happening is the new team gives that player an extension. Now, maybe Barry's just been waiting for the right defensive tackle, and he hasn't seen that because everyone's either been on the older side of the market or the draft didn't bring any promising players, but he loves Daron Payne. I don't think it's going to happen. The stats are good, no doubt about it. You guys can check that out there. But for that big reason of Andrew Berry not having a big affinity for interior defensive linemen, I don't see why he would trade Kareem Hunt for a player who would likely be a one-year guy. Now, reason number 2 here. I do not believe the Browns should be unloading key skilled players with so much uncertainty at the quarterback position. You can almost say definitively Deshaun Watson is not going to be starting the first, the second, the third, the first handful of weeks this 2022 season. Do not make life more difficult for Jacoby Brissett, for Jimmy Garoppolo, for whoever the quarterback is. Hold on to these players that you're going to be leaning on in the first half-ish of the season, right? You can better believe that if Deshaun Watson is not out there for the first 6, 8, 10 weeks of the season, Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb are going to be relied on heavily. So why would you move on from one of these key players that's going to be an instrumental part of keeping the offense afloat until Watson returns? Sure, Daron Payne can be a big contributor, and that's probably where I will be my own devil's advocate and say Daron Payne is a bigger facelift to that defensive line than Kareem Hunt at RB2, RB1.5, whatever, where you could have Dearness Johnson, right? Meaning Johnson would fill in nicely for Hunt. What Payne could bring to the defensive line, no one on this current Browns roster could offer. You see what I'm saying there, right? If you added Payne, you dramatically increase the defensive line. If you lose Hunt, it's not a fall to the floor because you still got good weapons in Johnson, Ford, and Felton. So it's not an end-all, be-all. Plus, you have a guy named Nick Chubb. But still, keep these skilled players until you know what's going on at the quarterback position. Don't start unloading key assets that you're probably going to be banking on until Watson returns. But I'll let you guys decide what you would do in this situation. I tossed in the day 3 draft picks because honestly, I don't really know. I mean, I saw someone on Twitter say a 5th and a 6th get swapped, but I don't know. It's day 3 draft picks. Like, that's not going to really make or break a trade here. But let me know. Would you trade Kareem Hunt for Daron Payne, T for trade, or P for pass? Now, before we get to the rest of today's show, we are racing our Giants Now channel. Producer Marsh, he runs that channel here at Chat Sports. We've got a bit of a lead on them, but they've closed in a little bit lately. I want to get some breathing room, right? Let's put them behind us in the dust. Hit that subscribe button if you love the Browns and you want Browns content all season long. Now, the next trade idea that was tossed around a bunch was Kareem Hunt for Jimmy Garoppolo. Pretty straightforward here. You could toss in some picks. I'm sure it would never, if it did go down, it wouldn't go down like this. You would see a 5th and a 6th go one direction and then the other direction. But the nuts and bolts of trading for Jimmy Garoppolo, I think the Browns should do this as soon as possible if a Watson decision comes out that he is suspended for 10 or more games. I've kind of, I wouldn't say pivoted on the trade for Jimmy G. I'm pretty firmly, dug in on if it's a long suspension, go get Garoppolo. I think Garoppolo is better than Jacoby Brissett. If it's 6 games, sure, you can ride with Jacoby Brissett. I don't think Jimmy G is going to get you an extra win in that short of a time span. But if it's 10, 12 games, you've seen Garoppolo take the 49ers to the Super Bowl. You could argue this Browns roster is more talented than that Niners team that went. So why couldn't he take this team far or lead to a good spot where he can hand it off to Deshaun Watson? So we got this coming up on the show in just a second, where the Browns should go out and pursue Jimmy Garoppolo. We will be looking at whether or not that makes a lot of sense here because Ryan Clark and the rest of the Get Up crew, they made a pretty good pitch. We're going to look at some of the key takeaways from that, okay? Because here's what Get Up had to say. The Browns are just one injury away from Josh Dobbs or Josh Rosen playing. When you put it that way, you better look a little closer at who the new backup quarterback would be if Jacoby Brissett slides up and he's QB1. Sure, you can give Dobbs and Rosen all the training camp reps you want. That's not a pretty picture here, all right? Now, there is an idea of, hey, why doesn't Cleveland wait for Jimmy Garoppolo to be cut by the 49ers because they're not going to pay him $24 million this season to be the backup? But here's the downside of that. If he's cut, Jimmy G has a little bit more of a say of where he ends up. Now, the Niners also said back in January when they lost to the Rams in the NFC Championship game, we will do right by Jimmy, meaning we're going to let him be a little bit of part of where he ends up. Not that he has a no-trade clause, but that we're going to let him be a part of this conversation. I think Cleveland is probably the most desirable location between Seattle and some other spots out there. But let me decide, I'll let you guys decide this. Should the Browns trade for Jimmy Garoppolo? Why for yes and for no? The reason why I think Cleveland is the most desirable location is because it's the best roster out there. He's got a 1-year deal left on his contract. It gets restructured. And what does he do? He balls out with Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, and Amari Cooper to set himself up for a great payday next free agency when, who knows, the Steelers realize Kenny Pickett sucks and Mitch is not the answer. All right, coming up next on the show, could Deshaun Watson receive a 10-game suspension? Albert Breer and Peter King believe that may be the magic number. So we're going to look at that in more detail. But first, we have a competition here at Chat Sports to see which of our NFL channels can reach 4,000 subscribers first over on Rumble, which is another video platform service similar to YouTube. We're second. I want to be first. Like Ricky Bobby, if you ain't first, you're last. So follow us, rumble.com/Browns Report. That link's in the comments and the description of today's show. So moving on to the Deshaun Watson rumor, sort of the latest buzz around number 4. Peter King and Albert Breer both predicting, we'll call it, 10 games for Deshaun Watson. Now, here's what Peter King put in his write-up. I hear there's not much of a chance for the two sides to settle this case before Harvey rules, but a settlement is the best idea. Increase the sanction to 10 games. Let Watson back for the post-Thanksgiving stretch of 7 games that includes a game against each division foe. 10 games feels light to me, but in the words of the noted middle ground seeker Paul Tagliabue, all's well that ends, period. Well, I don't know what Paul is talking about, but if Deshaun Watson is suspended 10 games, here are the 10 games he would miss. Now, note that there is a bye in Week 9. You don't get suspended for a bye, so you'd actually go through Week 11. Keep that in mind, by the way, for a 10 or 12 game suspension. It's more like 11 or 13 games. Now, no matter which way you chalk it up, 10 games is going to be tough. For whether it's Jimmy G or Jacoby Brissett, you play some teams with teeth, right? Ravens, Bengals. The Dolphins are going to be tough this year. The Bills, for crying out loud, let alone the Chargers earlier on. So that's what a 10-game slate with Brissett or Garoppolo would look like. Now, here's what Albert Breer said over at Sports Illustrated. So now, the NFL surely would hope to thread the needle in being tough enough on Watson while also avoiding landing back in federal court. I think going to say 10 games might do that. But either way, it won't be the league office doing it. It'll be a guy who helped write its policy and has a deep background with these kinds of cases, which would make it harder for Watson or the union to argue the process was unfair, even when considering that Harvey, unlike Robinson, is solely working for the league on this one. We are officially back to guessing season, right? Where everyone's got an idea of I heard 6 and I heard 8 and I heard 10. That's where we are at. Now, I want one thing to get across here. Do not let the NFL assigning this to Peter Harvey be a distraction from the fact of, well, it wasn't the NFL that decided actually. They passed it off to another person. No, they passed it off to a minion. They passed it off to one of their own. I am sure Roger Goodell texted Peter, just a number. That's it. And hey, if you want to continue being a part of the NFL and working with us, you should do what I say. That's probably how the conversation went. I think the NFL has 2 objectives here right now. They want to increase the fines. And honestly, you're not going to argue that with me. That's fine with me. $345,000 lost over a season and a half probably does seem a little bit light here. Goal number 2. They want to check 2 boxes. The first box is the optics. They don't want people mad at them. That's just how the league works. I am sure they have someone whose job is to sit on Twitter and make a end-of-the-day report to Goodell. Here's what people are pissed about, okay? They want to appease the fans. They want to appease people that felt 6 games was too light here. Second box is kind of what I was just mentioning. They want to give the impression of, we did not issue the suspension. We went through the CBA. Judge Robinson made her decision, and we appealed it, but we wanted to stay impartial. So we handed it off to someone else. So it was another impartial person. You're joking me? It's propaganda, okay? This is the NFL trying to, I can't say that name on the, producer Coop my ear saying something naughty. I won't relay. But this is Geppetto. This is puppets here, okay? Trying to make us think that this is not the NFL deciding Watson's punishment. Yes, it is. Peter C. Harvey is in the group message with Goodell and the rest of his henchmen. Not going to buy this nonsense. So if you are ready for all this to be over, and we could talk about football, like Browns, Jags, it's unfortunate that we probably won't get to see Michael Woods because he was awesome so far in training camp, but he pulled up with a hamstring injury. But we'll be having more football breakdowns and whatnot throughout the week. So if you're ready for all this to be over, spam Dog Pound down below.